What's good, everybody? I wanted to do this here. I thought about doing a live, but I said, nah. I got a couple other things I want to go live about. So this one is going to be a review. So you can put this on in your background and all that kind of stuff. I hope everybody's good. And let's get into it here. So this is a review. I want to review the situation that Taylor Chandler has been dealing with in the last couple of days, as I record this anyway. So I think this happened about a week or so ago, this recording that we're going to review. Excuse me. Well, this live is something I watched last night. So anyway, let's get into it here. So before we get into what Taylor Chandler and her guest had going on here, I wanted to talk about the lens by which men and women view things. And I think that this is very important. There have been a few other ladies who have been speaking about this new emergence of ladies into the public sphere and what that means for woke culture, what that means for different institutions, namely criminal justice, the judicial system, and academia, and how we relate to and how we view the world. So this is an article here, and I've covered the talk about this. This is called The Great Feminization by Helen Andrews. She is a right-wing conservative. So, take it for what it is. But there's an important point here I wanted to get into here. And this says, so I'm going to just read a little bit of this. Female group dynamics favor consensus and cooperation. Men order each other around, but women can only suggest and persuade. Any criticism or negative sentiment, if it absolutely must be expressed, needs to be buried in layers of compliments. If you watched my what was it? A breakdown of the interview that I did with Anita. We were the hosts, and we had Doctors Tamika and Dr. Damien on the show. And so we were speaking about this, about how, men and women perceive things differently in the tone that Kevin Samuels used, etc. Right. So that's what this is talking about here. The outcome of this discussion is less important than the fact that a discussion was held and everyone participated in it. The most important sex difference in group dynamics is attitude to conflict. In short, men wage conflict openly while women covertly undermine or ostracize their enemies. Barry Weiss, in her letter of resignation from the New York Times, described how colleagues referred to her in internal Slack messages as a racist, a Nazi, and a bigot. And this is the most feminine part. Colleagues perceived her to be friendly with me, were badgered by coworkers. I don't understand that. Colleagues perceived to be friendly with me were badgered by coworkers. Okay, well, that's what was going on. Barry Weiss is the lady who took over CBS News and essentially has turned it into CBS or CBS News. I can't remember. She's like in charge of what goes on, in particular with the news, and has turned it into like a Fox News 2.0. They've been hemorrhaging viewers. I'm sure that they'll pick up other right wingers. There's at least 2 interviews that I understand that they put the kibosh on. There was a situation with Stephen Colbert, I think it was, interviewed someone. The James Tallarico, who's running for Senate in Texas, and they decided not to air that. And so Stephen Colbert put it on the YouTube, and the last time I saw it, it got 6 million views. So them trying to hide things is not going to work out very well. But this is who Barry Weiss is, and I haven't worked with her. I don't know her, but this is what the allegations are. So Weiss once asked a colleague at the Times opinion to get a coffee with her. This journalist, a biracial woman who frequently wrote about race, refused to meet. This was a failure to meet standards of basic professionalism. Obviously, it was also very feminine. So I think that this is a slight against the biracial woman. But listen, if you understand that this woman has said things, moves a certain way, why would I want to go get a coffee with them either? And again, I haven't worked with this woman. I'm just saying, just from here, if this is supposed to identify a characterization that the biracial woman was holding grudges and therefore operating in a very feminine way of subverting someone, I don't think that this fits, because she was accused of being a racist, a Nazi, and a bigot. So as a biracial woman, why would you want to hang around that type of person? Now, if she wanted to meet about something serious, her job, or, maybe columns that she was writing, I don't know, but on the face of it, I wouldn't want to meet with them either. Men tend to be better at compartmentalizing than women, and wokeness was in many ways a society-wide failure to compartmentalize. Traditionally, I'm having trouble with this here, because wokeness was bringing to the idea. I agree with a lot what she says, but this in writing here, maybe it's hitting me a little bit differently. At least when I watched Helen Andrews articulate this in a video format, maybe it's hitting me different as it's being written. Was in many ways a society-wide failure to compartmentalize. Well, that's the point, that people will compartmentalize. In other words, I really have secret racist ideologies. I secretly have feminist or misandrist ideas about another group of people, but I'm supposed to be allowed to smile in your face. Where men are just like, nah, I don't like this dude. I don't like this dude. Let's get him out of here. Let's get him fired. Neither one of those are okay. Racism, sexism, etc. All that is not okay. But, should we be compartmentalizing? Right. So this is a greater conversation that we can have. But traditionally, an individual doctor might have opinions about the political issues of the day, but he would regard it as a professional duty to keep those opinions out of the examination room. Well, I agree with that. I agree with that. But that's not someone he works with. You don't want to get microaggressions. I talk about this when I teach about diversity, etc. Longer story that we can have another time. Now that medicine has become more feminized, doctors wear pins and lanyards expressing views of controversial issues, from gay rights to Gaza. They even bring the credibility of their profession to bear on political fads, as when doctors said Black Lives Matter protests could continue in violation of COVID lockdowns because racism was a public health thing. All right, so I just want to kind of show about how people view the world. That's what I want to get from there. All right, moving on here. So this is called From Warriors to Warriors. Warrior, and as in you're constantly fretting about things, to warriors, those who are actively engaged in conflict or preparing for conflict. The Rise of Women in Science and Society by Corey Clark. So Corey Clark has also written about this. And she is giving a presentation to a group of scholars, I believe it is. Scholars. It's been a long time since I watched this, but I did cover it on my channel before. Corey Clark has been speaking about this and what the rise of women in academia and other places as well. So it wasn't just Helen Andrews. This is Corey Clark as well. And she actually did some academic research. So you can go over there and watch the fullness of this. It's 33 minutes. It was really good. Very, very similar to the work that Helen Andrews noted as well. And this is from the Journal of Controversial Ideas. This is an open access journal. From Warriors to Warriors, the Cultural Rise of Women by Corey Jane Clark. And you can actually download this and read it over. We'll just read the abstract here. For the first time in history, women hold substantial cultural and institutional power. Men and women differ on average in their values. Women are more harm averse, equity oriented, and prone to resolving conflict through social exclusion. That would be that I'm not going to lunch with you or going to get coffee with you, right? Social exclusion, and you can't come with us. As a result, shifting sex compositions can bring palpable cultural change. The transition has been particularly dramatic in academia, where women were once almost entirely excluded and now constitute majorities. I review research showing that sex differences in self-reported academic priorities correspond to recent institutional changes, including preference for equity, including DEI, grade inflation, prioritization of harm avoidance, trigger warnings, safe spaces, increased ostracism, cancel culture. I then expand my analysis to other trends that may be partly attributable to the ascendancy of women, including the rapid success of LGBT community, animal rights progress. I agree with that one. Rising mental health concerns. I agree with that one too. And increased accountability for competent, unethical leaders. I don't know about that one. I mean, I agree with that, but I don't know if that's occurring. Women are once dubbed warriors by evolutionary scholars, participate in culture as warriors for justice. This reflection this inflection point offers an opportunity to examine the costs and benefits of both the male-oriented status quo and the emerging female moral order, so that societies may draw on the best aspects of both. So in these particular talks that were done by Andrews, and I'm pretty sure by Corey Clark, that they were talking about how women, in particular in academia, are more open to canceling individuals who don't share their line of thinking, be it the cancel culture, the inclusion. If there's a controversial speaker, they will be in favor of disinviting them, things along those lines, right? Not wanting to have these types of conversations, these hard, difficult, tough conversations. So go over, you can download that, you can read that. I'll try to remember to put this in the description. So why I wanted to cover that is because Taylor Chandler has been getting some pushback from a couple of different ladies. One I covered in another short video concerning Tracy McMillan Cottom with an M. And this new one here is by Vernique Esther. She's a LSW. So they're going to have, they started to, this was a live that Taylor Chandler conducted. I dropped in when they were just wrapping up. And they had, really kind of said that this was a good, productive conversation, and we, got to see eye to eye, and they really ended on a good note. So none of the things that Helen Andrews or Corey Clark suggested were occurring here. But what was going on in the beginning of this was, I then went back and I watched the beginning of it, and I said, okay, I need to do a reaction to this, because they started to get on the wrong foot. As I mentioned, they got on the right foot eventually, but the reason they got on the wrong foot is because they got into this idea about how we view the world. This is how we view the world, and how we look at text, and how we look at emails, and how somebody's tone matters. And it's to me, it was very apparent as we're dealing with. And I want you to understand what I just read to you about these other two individuals. One was a scholar. I don't think that Helen Andrews would call herself a scholar. She just kind of writes. And so certainly Corey Clark was a scholar, or presented a scholarly work. And these two particular ladies are licensed clinical workers who both do health or mental health work with individuals, and Tracy Cottom and this particular lady, Miss Vernique, I hope I'm saying her name right, Vernique Esther, says both had an issue with this idea of weight and how we view women, and how we view Black women, and so. This goes to how come we can't, a lot of times, we as a society can't correct Black women. Here, Taylor Chandler is trying to tell women, get in the gym, eat right, exercise. He's coming from it from a mental health perspective and from a personal trainer perspective. This is what she's saying. And these two ladies are pushing back. So I wanted to kind of play just a little bit of this dialogue, in particular in the beginning, because they can't seem to get eye to eye. Like, and Taylor Chandler was asking the question, what am I saying that is so wrong? And why can't we see eye to eye about this? So here we go.
Her comment in just a moment. And we will review the reels together that I've put out. I mean, I've been on social media for some years now, but these recent reels we're going to review that are particular about Black women. And what's going on, some research and some thoughts. So, that's the really high level view. We're going to really get into the nitty gritty of it. I'm going to go ahead and bring Vernique on, have her say hello, introduce herself, and then we'll just dive right in to the content. So Vernique, welcome.
Hey y'all.
Hey, appreciate you being here. I'm so glad. Oh, Vernique, I'm sorry, I'm messing up our intro. This is what it is. I don't have my lights on. You see what I mean? I don't have the lighting right. Exactly right.
Oh, okay. I'm used to your blue. You be setting the mood.
Yeah, I like the blue. And I kind of wanted to put.
All right, we got to get past this here. Hold on. I had to fast forward a little bit there. Here we go.
I'm doing all right. Listen, in this economy, you know, your girl got a job and another job. Okay. So, but I'm excited to be here with you all tonight. I am looking forward to this conversation and I'm feeling good. Taylor, how are you feeling?
Good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. I've got my second win, my third win of the day. Okay. They're long days.
Okay.
But I feel like a third win. You know, speaking of second or third jobs, we had, you know, there was, I know you know what comment I'm talking about that made a direct reference to defects. Okay. Can you be really clear? This is about clarity today, y'all.
No, because let's do all the clarity.
Okay. Let's get very clear. Can you just what is social work? Because some people don't know, and there's obviously some misconceptions. So can we just start there? Tell us what a social worker is, and can you give us an idea of what it is that you do on a day-to-day?
100%. So social work is actually a vast field that is rooted in social justice, advocacy, supportive work in a myriad of fields and environments. And so we have micro, meso, and macro, which is kind of an all-encompassing term, these terms.
All right, so I want to fast forward that a little bit there. So essentially what she deals with a lot of things, from Department of Families and Children's Services to a lot of different advocacy work. So that's what social work is. And I want to kind of get through that because she gave a really expansive definition. I want to get to the heart of this. I think I rambled enough already.
Tonight is about clarity. And again, a lot of wild stuff happens in the comments. I've been on the online space for a while, and you know, the bigger it gets, the more crazy it gets. So that's why one of the reasons why I'm so glad that you agreed to join me for a live discussion, because a lot of stuff happens asynchronously, okay, not in like real time, and people can get a lot of times people can get the wrong idea about. People get the wrong idea about me all the time. And
I will say this, as she's speaking about people getting the wrong idea, obviously she's right. You know, the bigger your platform gets, et cetera, then the more, you know, you're going to get a bunch of different perspectives. But I really, the people who disagree with me the most, or who try to quote me and try to suggest what I said, those aren't things that I said. And they usually come from women. I would say I'm struggling to think of a time when a guy said that he said, you know, you're saying this, and it was completely different. And it's just, and listen, this is about processing information. This is about the warrior versus warrior. That's why I started off with this. You know, how do we see the world? How do we process things? And how do we filter things? And this is important. This is essential as to, you know, how we can get clarity. So as Taylor Chandler is giving out this message in particular to Black women, to Black women, telling them to get right physically as well as mentally, why is this perceived in such a negative way? So she wants to get clarity about this. So let's continue on.
Saw today, people get the wrong idea about you quickly. And these conversations or disagreements or differences of opinions aren't often brought together to see like, whoa, is it got to be a fight? Like, it's not always, a comment is very much like a stamp, and we don't see the actual like integration of the conversation and what can actually come out of that. So I'm really appreciative of you joining us for this.
Yeah, thank you. And if I can add to, like, and I think this sets the stage for where I come from in this conversation and where I know me and you are aligned, is that I think social media, especially right now in where we are sociopolitically, environmentally, has become kind of a trash bag, like where you can just throw things, and not everything that's in a trash bag is truly trash, right? But it gets contaminated. And so I think that even when people can have the best intentions, but I think that people come to social media, especially social media comments, to get off things that they normally wouldn't say in polite society, to kind of vent and to voice their frustrations and like whatever they think. And I think a lot of people don't think they'll be seen. And so I just want the piece that I want to bring from this is, me and Taylor have never had an argument. We're not fighting about this. We have already discussed some of our divergent viewpoints to a small extent, but what we have in common is our love and commitment to the Black community, point blank period. And I feel comfortable saying that because I have followed you and in our conversations, and we both care about Black men.
Now, what did I read to you before about couched in the language of of discipline, or however it was worded in those articles, was all these different mandatory flattery type of items that had to be said. In fact, let me go over here and read it here. So any criticism, this comes from that article that was written by Helen Andrews. Any criticism or negative sentiment, if it absolutely must be expressed, needs to be buried in layers of compliments. That's exactly what's going on here. So I just want to kind of go over that a little bit there. So let's get back to this. So they're not having any arguments, but I want to get to what they start to disagree with. So let me try to see if I can fast forward here, because I want to get to the meat of what's going on. All right, we'll pick it up here.
That the way that someone thinks differently has something in there that can help you sharpen your own iron, or create a better picture, become more or a more holistic picture, or be more compassionate.
Yeah.
So that's really important. That's really important.
Absolutely.
So let's get into first the comment, because this is what brought you here. Let's do this. Here we go. So this was where I found you. Not literally first found you, but this is where I found you to try to bring you on to this page. So this is what you said. You said, I hate this is happening, because this was on this was where Dr. Tressie had put a comment under my thing. I replied in a reel. Now we got this thing going on. She said, I hate this is happening, but I will say I not only respect but revere Dr. Tressie. And if y'all haven't seen that reaction video and all that stuff, is all up there. We're not going to review that tonight. But she said, I revere Dr. Tressie. She's not new to this. She's true to this, and an advocate to the core. I also respect you, even though I don't always agree with your premises. That said, while I doubt she takes the time to discuss this live, she may surprise me. I do think there's room for reflection when it comes to how we discuss and interpret Black women's experiences. I don't think you've ever lied, but I do suspect sometimes your lens is skewed a bit, which is what a sociologist is trained to push back on. I also have a BA in sociology and anthropology. Food for thought. Okay, very well. Anything you want to say off the comment? Any context you want to give?
No, I said what I said, but I think that the way that I came across this, by the way, I was minding my own business. I think I was like eating or whatever. And I'm like, I thought I had whiplash for a second. I was like, Dr. I was like, do they know each other? Like, it was just so confusing. So then I had to go back multiple comments, to be like, what's going on? So when I said, I hate this is happening, that was my real time reaction. Cause I was like, no, like, I hate that this is how this discussion came about.
So she kind of put this up here. I want to get to the heat of where they start discussing this at. So she kind of put this up there without really thinking. I don't want to say without thinking, but kind of in the heat of the moment, as she just mentioned there. And so it sounds like you guys can watch this for yourself. I want to shorten this video up a little bit, but it sounds like she had a little bit of regret there concerning what she was talking about. I am going to fast forward a couple of seconds here and try to get to the heart of what we want to discuss.
Women's experiences. And we're going to talk about kind of the been said there. I offer, looking at how we're discussing and interpreting Black women's experiences. And we're going to talk about kind of the lens that could be skewed a bit. Is there any way that you would describe, before I put up this first reel, are there any words you would use to describe the lens or the stance that you think that I kind of taking?
I'm glad you asked that, because I wasn't even thinking about that, but it was mentioned several times in your comments. Like, people were really offended by my use of the word, I suspect your lens is skewed, of the phrase rather. I made a comment under that because somebody else had said something, and I said, we all have biases. We all have skewed lens to some extent. Now, I already know by saying that that is a setup for somebody to be like, well, then your lens is just skewed. Fine. But we're going to present both sides and allow for that discourse and parsing out. One, you shouldn't take wholesale what anybody says anyway. Nobody.
Again, I'm not saying that men are 100% more factual 100% of the time. That's not my argument. But a lot of times these things don't happen in between men. And if they do, we get it up front. Wait a minute, brother. Did you just say X, Y, and Z, whatever? So I'm glad that these two ladies are hashing it out and having a conversation about it. That's the way it should be. I wish that Dr. Tressie would have the same dialogue, because you got to get it out in the open. I mean, if we're going to fix the community, which I appreciate that both of them want to do, but they're at least admitting that you have to have a lens. And here's the situation, right? So when I did my dissertation, I did a hermeneutic phenomenological, always such a mouthful, dissertation. So what that means is I had to take the lived experiences of all these different, in my case, police officers, and try to synthesize it and try to come up with these themes. If you watch the interview that I did with Dr. Kima and Dr. Damien, if you watch that, we talked about reflexive thematic, right? So it was kind of similar, but in my case, with the hermeneutic phenomenological, what I had to do was I had to take a look at what all these different people were experiencing in their lives concerning a certain phenomenon, right? We look at the phenomenon. In the case that I looked at was what we call the Minneapolis and Ferguson effects. Look at those two effects, and then how police officers responded, both supervisors and subordinates, how they responded. Longer story. So, what I had to do about that was I had to talk about my own prejudices and biases. I had to confront that. It was part of what I had to put into my paper, is how I am going to get around what I think law enforcement should be doing, my time in law enforcement, even as a Black police officer. I had to write about that. So you have to address these biases that we all have, these lenses that we all have. So it's good that, we're getting this out in the open. But a lot of times, I think that if you ask Corey Clark, that men are just at times better than that, because we have overtoned versus subtones in our speaking.
I say that to my platform. Stop just taking wholesale what people say on the internet, because you can trust me, and I believe I'm trustworthy, but you should always scrutinize through your own lived experience, but through other sources, what is truth, right? So that is work that we should.
You should definitely do it through other sources, other academic sources. That is the standard. That is the bar. And as long as you interpret it through your own lens and through the lens of people that you know around you, that's why, everything when people say to me, you're right, you're just, doing this about somebody's, some one video. I'm going to tell you, yes, it is my own interpretation of an experience, but I've had those experiences myself. And other people are having them as well. That would be the phenomenon. And we want to understand how people are processing that. So that's how I kind of approach that. If it was just me happening all the time, you're absolutely right. You shouldn't listen to it. If it was Miss Vernique or Taylor all the time, you'd be absolutely correct not to listen to that. But you got to take, when you take into consideration the vast amounts of experiences, and especially academic experiences, that is what gives, in particular, in social sciences, credibility.
All be doing, but the skew to me, I think that, and we might be going too far with this, but based off of a lot of the content that I've seen, your platform is more supportive to men. And when I say supportive, I don't mean that derogatorily. I don't mean that like that's a bad thing. My platform mostly supports women. Right. So same thing. So I find sometimes, and I'll use me as an example, that when I see things at times, I may have a natural reaction because I'm an advocate for Black women, but I take a moment to be like, is this factual? Is it true? And is it fair, the assessment that's being made? If the assessment is not fair, then I feel like I'll jump in and comment. But sometimes people say stuff, I'll be like, ooh, like how they say, if you can't say amen, say ouch. And I think on your platform, because your heart seemingly is geared towards men and their well-being, I think that when you look at data, you're looking at it at times, at least the data that I have seen you sparse through. So I can't say that is just how you view data. But I think that sometimes it can be skewed to align with your beliefs, supports, and experiences that men have had. I will quote Dr. Tressie on this when she said that we can take things from data that is not necessarily what the researchers intended. And so we look at data like the marriage rate, which I can't wait to get into, by the way, the marriage rates between Black men and Black women. And we're like, they're at 34%, we're at 27%. Black women are the least likely to get married. But that is numerically correct, but it is not statistically and qualitatively the full picture. So when I say your lens is skewed, it is because your passion leads you to potentially, right? I'm not making an accusation, and
now here's why. You want to know why I did that long monologue to get to this? Is because this, and even Taylor's going to push back against this, because here's what she's saying. When you look at data, you again, you're looking at it through a particular lens versus looking at it through whatever it is. Taylor's going to dig into this. She's going to do a good job pushing back on this narrative that's coming forward right here. But I want you to pay attention because this is important. They're going to start talking about numbers, qualitative numbers, quantitative numbers, different stats, and how you look at that. And they're going to start talking about marriage rates. So why did I talk about all this at the beginning? Here's where it's going to become important, because when ladies enter into, and this is not to say ladies shouldn't be in academia. Please don't get in here saying that. When ladies enter into academia, it is these particular types of lenses that they look and view the world. And sometimes if they don't like something, as I mentioned, you go back and watch those other ladies who talked about this. It wasn't not just me. These other ladies are talking about this and saying, when we don't like someone, we will be more likely to cancel them. We don't want to invite them into our public space, and we engage in cancel culture. We engage in getting them fired. We engage in these different types of subversive behaviors because we don't like what they're saying. That's why I talked about all that at the beginning.
Giving all these disclaimers, not for you, girl, because I know that you get it. But I think that when we are passionate about a demographic, everything could potentially lead towards what we want it to say in support of them, even if it's not. It's not like when people read the Bible based off of their beliefs and what the Bible is.
You're kind of saying it's almost like confirmation bias.
Yeah, similar.
I have never set out to support men.
That's interesting.
I never. It's never. I have this conversation. I actually have these conversations offline.
And see, so here's a lens. Hearing what Taylor is saying, because she would say something that would be positive towards men or negative towards women, means that it would be positive towards men. That was her lens. That's the lens that Vernique was looking at the world through. And now when she's hearing that, she's like, "Oh, that's interesting. Wow, you never did that." You have to be able to take the world for the way that it is, or the information for what it is. And you really have to check yourself and saying, man, am I doing this? When I entered into this space as far as being, whatever the pill is, whatever, when I really started looking into that, the first question I was asking myself was, am I crazy? Right? Because I'm checking myself before I go out there and start talking about stuff and ranting and raving and making videos and whatever. I have to check myself and look at the lens that I'm looking at. It could be a me phenomenon. It could just be me. But when you start seeing it from other people in other states, other regions having the same issues, well, wait a minute now. Now we're getting some data. Now we're getting some information. So that's what we're going on here. So again, the way that Vernique is now admitting that she took what Taylor was saying, even no matter what the numbers say, even if it's positive towards men or negative towards women, I'm putting those words into her mouth, that would mean that, okay, I'm going to put it in the schema of she must be for women. She must be for men. And now Taylor has to correct her and say, no, it was never like that.
With people who know me in real life, I'm like, I never set out to do that. That is literally it's not in my intentions. What I think I do is I talk about I call it reality. Now this is where it gets dicey. That's why we got to break some things down. I call it I really believe I'm on the side of truth. What is reality?
Yeah.
And especially, so particularly I deal in the area of marriage, family, health, and wellness. So I'm a licensed marriage family therapist, and I was in the fitness industry for 10 years, personal trainer, group trainer, health coach, fitness nutrition specialist. So all of these things are these are my 4 pillars: marriage, family, health, and wellness. And when it comes to these areas, I really do think, and I want to see where it could be truly it's off, but I really do think that where most men, the issues that we're seeing in marriage, family, health, and wellness, most the problems in those areas, most men seem to be able to see it, and they're able to be yeah, that's it. If we could just get this together, we would solve these problems. And most women seem to not see it. And so I think that is why my content, and this is a simplified way of saying it in a nutshell, I think that's why my content seems geared to men, because I think men are more able, likely, and willing to be in the truth of the things related to marriage, family, health, and wellness.
This is why again, I went through at the beginning there. she is able. This is a skill. It's a skill for men. Believe me, it's a skill for men. I think the men are more prone and have the ability to be able to do it more. But when you can just look at the data and say, this is where it leads me to, and this is why I form my opinion. And I get this all the time from my students, right? This is hard for me to get through the minds of my students, my college students, particularly my bachelor's level students, even sometimes my master's degree students. They want to just give me some answer. I'm like, where'd you get this answer from? You think this is your opinion. What in here is supporting your opinion? Give me some scholarly academic article that is supporting your opinion. Otherwise, either don't give me the opinion or change it. But I need some data in here. I demand that about my bachelor, and it's harder for bachelors because they don't really get it. I'm just like, oh, I think this, or I saw this on the news. Okay, well, how do you know the news is lying to you, right? We can go down all these different types of rabbit holes. Let's continue on here.
Yeah, I actually really understand what you're saying. I will also add that, because somebody mentioned, I wish I could have the comments, because I don't want everything we talk about to end up coming from the comments. But somebody said quantitative versus qualitative. And yes, I think that we need good research is both. Right?
All right. So I want to try to make this a little bit bigger here, because they talked about the chat, and I'm going to try something different here. So hopefully this works out. So I rewound it a little bit here. Let me rewind it again here. All right, we'll pick it up.
Versus qualitative. And yes, I think that we need good research is both, right? It is lived experience, which I know you are big on. I'm gonna say of men, because how you are perceived may not always be how you intend to be perceived, right? But the perception, you have a lot of qualitative data on men's experiences, and I have a lot of qualitative data on women's experiences. And
what do you mean? Like, where's the qualitative data?
I think you had mentioned something about, like, when you talk to men, they're saying these things. They're talking about women's weight as an issue in dating. They're talking about, I'm saying, like, you have been in spaces where you have heard a lot of qualitative information and experience, like men's experiences. That's not true?
Okay. I definitely have heard a lot of stories about men and what they prefer. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that what you were just saying is that the data confirms what you're saying. And so it seems that, like,
they are crushing this lady, and they're crushing this lady in the chats here. Men talking about it as the confirmation of numbers. Show me the research, sis. Something else here. You guys can read through this here, but this is about to be a facts versus feelings conversation for sure. I can tell. Yeah. So this is why I want to talk about that. And for the last time, I'm going to mention this. That's why I played this stuff at the beginning. Here we go.
Like, your platform is not supportive, specifically targeted towards men, but the quantitative data looks that way. But I still think that there is room, I was trying not to jump ahead, but if we're looking at, let's say, specifically marriage statistics, 34% of Black men are married, and 27 or 21%. I think it's 27% of Black women are married.
It's somewhere between
you said what?
Like between 24 and 27.
Yeah, something like that. I threw it, just left my head that fast. That seems like,
listen to this argument that's going to come on here. Listen to this argument.
Because Black women are the least likely to get married, if they would do giving, and I'm being facetious what I'm about to say, but thank you. Yes. Numbers don't lie, interpretations can. And you're not a liar, girl. I didn't call her a liar, y'all. But when you look at those numbers numerically, quantitatively, there is a difference, and that means that we should pay attention to it. But qualitatively, and from a lens of just statistics overall, that is negligible. 30, dang, I keep throwing away, huh?
I was gonna say, let's just play the tape.
Oh, yeah, let's go.
Let's play the tape.
Women, see, how do I know we're the most single? Black women are the most single, and we have the biggest women. How do I know we're the most single? Real quick, y'all, here are the marriage numbers. Among all US adults, 49% of women are currently married, compared to 53% of men. 27% of Black women are married, 49% never married. 34% of Black men married, 50% never married. 31% of Black people married, 50% never married. I'm reading all that for the record. I want you to focus on this one.
So we can pause right there. Let me just
stat today. 27% of Black women are married, 49% never married. Okay, just focus on that stat. When you compare that to all in the United States, like 48% of all married, or of all people in the United States are married, and Black women are 27%. That's a huge difference. And we're going to focus on body and the way that that impacts this number today, although we could talk about other things. Most men want a woman they are attracted to, who could
see. Now that's qualitative, y'all. Just so you understand, like that wasn't based. That's what qualitative is. That's like based on what men say in general, or that I've heard. Right. Most men. So that's
carry and care for their children if they choose to have children. They want quality of life and know that being with a woman who is not physically fit will greatly impact that. Your health is wealth. So being unhealthy, too fat, too big, okay, effectively makes you broke in that regard. I'm making the simple argument that if Black women were more physically fit, their chances at marriage would increase. It wouldn't solve the whole problem. Again, the attitude and mindset need to match up. Too many Black women, 8 out of 10, are at least over a normal weight, or are at least overweight and can even get into obesity. If you want to account for some of you with a whole bunch of muscle, okay, let's take that down to 6 or 7 out of 10. I will give that to you for the sake of the argument. It's still too much. That means that more than half of you, let's say 60 to 70% of you are actually just too fat, are actually just like truly, genuinely overweight and obese because of fat on your body. Are y'all following me? Too big to fit, generally fit what a man, especially a high quality man, are we talking about someone with good character? We're talking about someone who, yes, is financially able to support you and the family. Yeah, I mean, men who want to get away from providership in a traditional sense, you're not the man for this group. Okay, just like women who don't want to care about their body, you're not the woman for this group. Okay, other groups, fine.
So there's a lot in there, right? That's almost 3 minutes, and there's a lot in there. Where should we start? What might be misinterpreted? Should we go even here? The 49% of women versus that are totally married in the United States compared to 27% of Black women. Could you help us to understand how that might be? Give us a more maybe clear picture.
So on that piece, I would like for us to talk about that when we talk about the socialization between white and Black folks. So I'll save that piece.
The socialization. I'm going to interrupt us here. The socialization. Black men have been called the garbage men of the dating world because we just go after anything. Our women are bigger because we accept it, because we have been social. I'm assuming this is our argument. This is where I think I start to cut it off at. And I wanted to do a reaction to it. So what is the socialization? If we were socialized differently, the weight wouldn't matter. The weight would matter. Skinniness or thinness wouldn't matter.
When we're looking at, I think I wrote it down. So I'll save that piece. But when we're looking at, I think I wrote it down. So the 27% of Black women versus the 34% of Black men, those are both. So again, statistically, comparing them to one another is practically irrelevant. That's like saying, I finished a race in 10.5 seconds. You finished a race in 12.2. We're both fast, right? Like those statistics are poor compared to the overall like American stats. So we can't just look at that and say, well, they're the worst. That's the lowest number. That's statistically, like from a research perspective, that's, y'all, I'm not going to overly police my words. I'm sorry. It's statistically like disingenuous, not because that's your character, but more so because that's not the most important part of the data that you're looking at. The most important part of the data.
Wait, let me just make sure that I understand what you're saying. You're saying that we say that 34% of men are married, 27% of women are married. That's like comparing apples to sharks.
No, I'm saying those are both low numbers. Black men and Black women are both doing poorly in the marriage market. They are.
But you can't say that one is doing poorer than the other.
That doesn't matter. That's what I'm trying to say.
What? Okay,
that doesn't matter.
This is why I disagree with this particular argument that is going on here is Taylor's right. We're both doing poor, but to point out that men are doing better and they're less men. There's 2 million more women, 2 million more Black women than men, and men are married at a higher rate. And according to most recent data, men want to get married more versus the women, and they're not finding marriageable women for various reasons, because of weight, because of attitude, as Taylor has talked about, because of high expectations. So the men are not finding marriageable women. We know that because a lot more men want to be married. Her argument is that we're all doing bad, so these numbers are statistically insignificant. I mean, this is not a stats course. We'll be looking for 0.5 for the p-value, right? We're not looking for that. We're just looking at the raw numbers, the percentages, and those types of stats, and saying, here are the numbers. There are more men who are married versus more women. And one of the reasons we need to get married women to understand this is if you could understand that if you would increase your weight, fixed attitudes, and everything else that men are complaining about, from the hair, the makeup, the wigs, the weaves, and the grandiose expectations, then maybe we could get more women to be married to Black men.
Matter at all, because they're both poor for different reasons. The reasons why the statistics are poor matter, but saying that you lost, I got a F, you got an F minus, we both failing. You know what I'm saying? So
okay,
no.
I hear you. I hear the argument. I don't think it's a good one, but I do.
That's okay, and that's
saying.
fine. But yes. I want to give you some of what from my experiences and what I am seeing in the field, and even from some statistics and data that is coming out now. Well, let me not say statistics, from data that is coming out now, research that is coming out now about how men are showing up in the marriage market, and how the dating market is shifted right now, and in whose favor is what. That's the part that I want to.
I definitely want to see those numbers. How are men showing up? Let me write this down here. I had to stop and write that down there.
Now, and in whose favor is what. That's the part. And how the dating market is shifted right now, and in whose favor is what. That's the part that I want us to talk about. But right before, so I know that it seems like it doesn't, I'm not saying that it doesn't matter at all, but I am saying that it is less relevant than the fact that as a whole, Black people we suck at getting married, and we suck at staying married.
That's true. Look, that's true, y'all. That's true.
So with that, I don't think that we can just say, well, whoever has the F minus got to do more work to make sure that that them and the F pluses get to an A plus, because that also is not going to work. It is not just on Black women. The reason why, by the way, men are leading at 34% is because they are more likely to date outside of their race.
We agree that people have to, and that was never Taylor's argument. The argument is that I'm thinking about something else as I'm trying to look at Taylor's face there. She ain't buying this. So the argument is that we need to isn't that we need to focus more on women. Taylor has addressed men, will address men. Other people have addressed men. We're all addressing what needs to be addressed. It's not wrong and bad to address the weight issue from women. If men got to fix themselves, men got to level up, men got to get their money together, men got to get their clothes together, men got to get their hygiene together, and every other thing that we talk about in this particular space. If we got to do that, then the women have to do some adjusting too. And part of that adjustment has to be the weight. And the weight issue should not be a taboo. Mental health should not be a taboo. Weight should not be a taboo. The wigs, the weaves, the attitude, everything else should not be a taboo if we're talking about partnering up. Men overwhelmingly, every single man on this planet would be overwhelmingly in favor of dating their own race. Is in favor of dating their own race. One of the big reasons that men choose to go outside of the race, in particular now in vastly more numbers, even though it's not huge, talk about these statistically insignificant numbers, is because they're not finding the type of woman that they want in their own community. Thus, we have the passport bros who are willing to get on a plane, go to another country to get someone who's more amendable, more amenable, more flexible, more cooperative. Why? Come on now. That's this is interesting conversation here.
I'm not going to tip too far into that. I'm not going to put any that's right or wrong on that. It doesn't matter. The evidence shows that Black women are most race loyal. Period. So if they,
and that's because if you, I hate to be mean about this, but if your own men are saying these are issues that we have with that, and why would anyone else deal with that? And they have it from their own experiences. In fact, I was watching another YouTuber who said something I had said before. It seems like those women who date white men oftentimes get the best. The white guys get the best of the Black women. That's what they said. I don't know. It's what they said. It's something I've noticed that I've gone through places. One time I was in Vegas, and I'm walking around. I saw this, man, saw a couple of bad black women. I'm like, oh, wow. Next thing you know, here comes Brad walking up to him. Or they were walking, holding hands with Brad or whatever. So listen, and this is about economic viability on black men's part. This is about availability, all these different types of things. So, but those are all things that we got to work on. TWGS4 PG says cap. Okay, here we go.
Can't find love with Devontae, they're not going to Kurt for the most part, right?
That's kind of racist.
I know. I'm okay with it. But yeah. And Devontae's a great name. My elementary school boyfriend's name was Devontae. He was a good guy. But that is why, that is the difference. And by the way, I'm gonna just throw this out here. The marriage statistics between black men and black women are the worst and the divorce rates are highest. However, the next worst is black men and white women. So in the best chance statistically that men have, if not with a black woman, is actually, I think, Spanish women. They tend to fare a little bit better. Also, Spanish women don't play that. So going back to that, the men are more likely to date outside of their race. You can have your reasons for that, but it still doesn't change the state of black marriage. It still doesn't change the fact that we are struggling to get together. So when I'm talking about coloring data and how we interpret data, see, I found a way to not look at the comments, and now you bring them up.
Yeah, look, we do.
That's fine.
No, you do.
That's what I mean when I say the data seems skewed, because from a larger statistical lens, again, the F and the F minuses were both failing. So let's talk about how we both can be held accountable and come to the table to do better. Because I don't believe
one way to do that is to address all the different aspects that men and women are saying. If women say that they're not finding men on their level, if they're not finding men who that's in particular, they're not finding men on their level, be it education and be it finances. That is the number one complaint that women are saying. Meanwhile, we can point out on our side to say, okay, well, 54% of the black men are in the middle class somehow, and married and childless, not married. 54% of black men are not married and childless. 61% are in the middle class. I actually have you have to add on to that how many men want to be married and how many men are somehow in the rainbow community. So you have to, we have to disaggregate all those numbers and figure out who wants to be married. So these are things that men have to do in order to make themselves more academically and economically viable. Although academically doesn't have to be formal education. You can be a construction worker, you can be a roofer, whatever. These ladies need to take them up with themselves. Blue collar work, and it can put food on the table. The need to have these deep, long intellectual conversations. Okay, whatever. So that is what they need to work on. If the women also said, well, all the men that I'm meeting are fat, all the men who I'm meeting are don't take baths, all the men who I'm meeting are financially irresponsible, even though they make good money, they're not making this. Then those are things that we as men would say, hey, listen, brother, you need to get yourself together. These women are not meeting any men who are not economically viable, who don't know how to save money, who are all drug addicted, yada, yada, yada. Here's the things you need to fix. If we can have that conversation amongst ourselves, then the same type of conversation should go on amongst the women, in which they would say, okay, here's the things that women need to change because we've heard from the men, and here's what they don't like. The wigs, the weaves, the weight. The wigs, the weaves, and the weight. The wigs, the weaves, the weight, and the bossy attitudes and negative this and negative that. And here's the things they need to fix. But somehow when it comes down to weight, and some other issues, don't talk about women's hair, don't talk about their weight, don't talk about their attitudes, right? And you're just as she alluded to, as Miss Vernique alluded to, what she said, something about race. It's slipping my mind what she alluded to. The socialization aspect of it. Well, maybe men are socialized. She never even explained what she meant by that, but never socialized to want a certain thing. As if somebody stood in the front of a class one day and said, here's what you're going to like. The reason that, you know, people are going to like what's in their communities, right? When you go to Thanksgiving dinner, when you have birthday parties and anniversaries and cookouts in the backyard, and you see all these different women that are there as a little kid, you know, you're 8, 9, 10 starting to come up, and you see this is what your uncle's like, this is what your father's like, right? So you're going to like the same thing. So this is what we grew up liking. And if all the women in our family were big, then it's what you like. The women in my family weren't big. I remember all my uncle's wives and all this kind of stuff. They weren't big. So therefore, I am not attracted to a big woman. Okay. Okay. Why can't we have that conversation?
I'm gonna pause right here, but I do want to talk about how we characterize obesity and fatness as a key cause. But I'll stop.
All right. Well, all right. Thank you. Is it fair to say that Black men might marry more Black women if Black women dealt with some of the issues that I've kind of talked about, some like weight and attitude?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, we can say that. And because we're here to have a discussion,
Okay.
I think that some Black women, or many, I'll say like what my algorithm and what my conversations with single Black women look like is they're also just opting out altogether. Black,
right.
and I've heard that Black men are doing the same, but Black women are like, there are things that need to be addressed among Black men for them to feel safe and comfortable within the dating market themselves. And
True.
it has to do with the emotional wellness and as well as some of the philandering behaviors of Black men. And we can go there because I have.
Whoa. Hey, let me back you up now.
That's fine.
Back you up now. Okay, so
Philandering behavior. Y'all got to stop that philandering behaviors and get yourself checked as far as mentally, right? What you know, not to be funny about it, we do advocate for mental health. And if you are not in a place where you can have an argument or disagreement with a woman without becoming volatile within your temper, then that is definitely something you need to adjust and work on, brother. Come on now. Nobody wants you putting your hands on their daughter. I certainly don't want that. So get that stuff together.
you said a lot here. You said a lot. We have to do a reaction video to this, Vernique. But
I'm right here. You could just react. Look,
it's
why
so
you gotta
much.
react
I can't keep track. You did 8 different points. So look,
You're throwing a lot of crap against the wall.
you made a big thing that you said was that essentially everybody's failing. So let's not. This is not your word for word, but it's almost like let's not look at the F minus because we already got an F. I mean, could you see how that's like it comes off as like a sidestep of accountability of seeing like, well, what is going on with Black women? And so it's kind of like, well, everybody's failing. So I mean, hey, what are we gonna do? But instead of saying
that's not what I said. I said everybody's failing. So we both need to see what we have to do better. That's not a sidestep. So that's a call for accountability on both sides.
But the reaction to the video is she's moving the goalpost and doing a whataboutism. Let's 100% focus on fixing the weight problem with women. Can we talk about Black men's attitudes, their philandering behaviors, their lack of financial viability? Yes, we can make all these different videos about that. But why is there a pushback? Why is there a pushback when there is a situation? I'm looking at the timer, how long I've been on. Why is there a pushback when there is an addressing of the issues concerning weight? Why do we get that? Constantly, why do we get that?
Did anybody else hear it like that? I mean, it kind of sounded like it was evening it out when it's like, no, there's definitely a group doing worse.
Right. And my point is that the worst that you're talking about is it has not just to do with the F minus. It is both.
This is why I made videos about holding women accountable, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And somebody else wrote in here, this comment right here, we both philander. Right. When you look at the data, something like 27% of people admit to being stepping out for men. I think it's like 22% for women or something like that. And also we've got this idea about 1/3 of children who are born are not born to the father who it's the wrong father. That whole situation. Thus calling for DNA testing at birth. This is a thing for real.
When I talk to Black women about why they're single, it's not because they're fat. Nobody is like, and for those of you who don't like fat women, you just
she's going to the women asking them, why aren't you married? And if they will never say that they're fat. I mean, what kind of, look at Taylor. Oh my God. They would never say that they're fat. What kind of,
don't date fat women. So why aren't you dating the skinny, more whatever Black women that you can have access to?
Because many of them still have other issues. Not only is it the weight, but also it's the attitude. It's also the fakeness. It's also the wigs, the weaves, etc. The debate, the numerous children that women have out of single mothers out there. Men are not wanting those types of things, especially in comparison to my generation. These young boys ain't talking about that. 20s and 30 years old. They ain't talking about marrying nobody with I saw a video the other day. It was kind of funny. This guy said, what did he say? I mean, I'm having a brain fart here. Oh, he said, there's a lot of women out here with no kids. Why should I put up? You want me to come over and wait for your kids to go to sleep? Why should he do that? Why should he do that? Terrible. This is terrible what's going on here.
Of us are not fat. So like when I'm talking to Black women, they're saying, well, the issues that I'm having is I can't connect with him emotionally. I don't feel wanted. I don't feel like, or not wanted, but I don't feel like he's being consistent, right? Those sort of things. Bruh. So why is it that because that 27% exists that I can't say, and plus also, yes, there are issues with Black women, and we can talk about them right here today. We can talk about attitudes and things like that.
We could talk about attitudes and things like that, but we can't talk about weight. Come on now. Everybody's seeing through this. Everybody's seeing through this.
Because I don't disagree that they exist. But I do think that by saying that because you're worse, if we deal with you, everybody else will be better, that's not fair. I don't think that's fair.
I didn't get that last part. If we dealt with you, like if we dealt with you. So
if we deal with the lowest statistic, that'll bring everybody up. What I'm saying is we deal with the two lowest statistics because they're the ones trying to get together. Black men are not showing up to the dating market as healthy as they could be, and Black women are not showing up to the dating market as healthy as they could be. And we need to address both of those things. That's all I'm saying. And I think I've been saying that.
Yeah, you definitely.
Look at this comment. Look at this comment. It's a lack of accountability because we're not talking about their faults. She wants us to share them. This is another Black woman who can't own her own stuff. That's why I put these comments in so you guys can see what people are saying. Yeah, she's trying to make it a group conversation where we bring up Black women, and then she says, "Look back at Black men if we're going to be fair." And this all started about, this is the conversation about weight. We don't like how you're looking at the weight. We don't like how you're viewing this through this lens.
Why is that a sidestep though?
Because it's like you're evening it out, like where everybody's kind of in the same boat, but everybody's not in the same boat. Black women are doing like kind of like noticeably worse in dating and relationships.
By 7%? 7% is noticeably worse? What's noticeable about that?
I mean, we're going to get to the baby mother reel too.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it seems kind of like noticeably worse.
7%. Like if you did 7% better than somebody, you would be like, but you both got an F. You would be like, ooh, thank God I passed.
Well, I don't think it's all about kind of like who's getting married either. Okay. Which is why we have some other kind of like markers. Okay. I mean, like
these measures that she's giving, well, we both passed. If the comparison is 48% of the rest of the community of the U.S., then the whole country is getting an F when it comes to that. So who's doing the worst of the failing group is Black women. Then we got Black men, and then we get Hispanic and et cetera. I think the Asians and Indians are doing the best when it comes to that. Something like 80% or so of their of members in the community are married, but they're vastly smaller in number. So when we look at one of the dominant cultures, or at least percentage-wise, it was of course white, and then of course Latino. How are they doing? And those two are not doing it much better than the Black folks. This is an American problem, Western problem. But and again, Why can't we have the conversation about moving up? I'm going to cut this off in a minute here because I'm starting to repeat myself. This is what we call saturation. Starting to repeat myself. So, you know, it's just unfortunate that she's doing a whataboutism, and we can't focus on the ideas that are going on in the Black community. She started to say something about we can talk about other things. Let's hear that.
We have some other kind of like markers.
Okay,
I mean,
tell me the
like so in marriage, family, health, and wellness, I think Black women are doing doing noticeably worse than Black men. Now, there are definitely, I agree with you that that Black women and Black men in general are just doing poorly in marriage. I think that is really obvious. I think that's really obvious. I think the sidestep, the perception of a sidestep comes from like when we put everybody in the same container rather than saying like, okay, this group has some particular issues that they're bringing in. Black women have some particular issues that they're bringing in general, and Black men also have some particular issues that are bringing in general. I mean, we like
That's
money.
the
We're
same
going to
thing.
start
You
talking
just said
about
the
money.
same thing. I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not a sidestep. That's just being clear about what's happening. But Black men are Black men are doing 7% better than Black women in the dating market. And by the way, I'm seeing that comment of like, but that's millions, right? In light of 500 million people, like again, you can't just look at numbers and say that means something when we're looking at a grossly large population. Like
500 million people? Is that what she said? The current population last census was 335 million people, maybe up to 340. Some are saying 350 or whatever. So you know, I don't know if she's misspeaking or what, but
this is where we can get where we say, well, the data, the statistics. But what you think 3.85 million means in a population that's 500 million is not what it means statistically. Now, qualitatively, in your one-to-one experiences, we can discuss how that impacts you. If you live in a city or a state with a lot of mean and fat women and you have no prospects because of that, then your experience and how that 7% impacts you.
Why are we living in the places where there are mean and fat women? I'm not talking about, you know, choosing to live there. I'm talking about whereas before, you know, before social media, people went to high school and you found somebody who was in your vicinity and were able to get married. Why is that not the case anymore? Well, because now the women that you're running into in your community are now, in her words, mean and fat. They have their baby mamas, and men don't want that. So therefore, they're going out of the communities, getting on airplanes. They're going to other locations. They're going to other groups of women. They're choosing not to do anything at all. As somebody put in here before, SYS. This is what's going on here. This is what's going on here. And you know, this TWG says you demonstrating a prime example of the lack of accountability. Why can't it just be as simple as that? It's something we can work on, yet choose not to deflect.
Is a lot more than the rest of us. But for those of us who live in a pretty aggregate, like, you know, there's lots of, I'm not gonna say lots of options, but there's a mix, right? Where that 7% versus this percent versus that exists within, like, it's all mixed in. I don't know how to explain it. Mm-hmm. I hate that for you. You should move. You really should move. If that's all you have access to, your dating pool sucks. So, but the rest of us that live where these populations are pretty much represented.
But they shouldn't. The point is that they shouldn't suck for the men or for the women. Now, this is about weight, but they shouldn't suck. The women can get in shape. That would make them more physically attractive. They should also do something about their attitude. That would also make them more attractive. So weight, attitude, and then the realness that men are looking for. That would all increase their chances of being married. Why is that shameful to say?
I'm saying is that is not, like, we cannot just say that is the biggest problem. That is the only problem. And if that was, if Black women got skinnier and if Black women had less attitude, then we would all be better. And that's just not it. That's not it.
I would like to see. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Here's the thing. I live in Atlanta, right? We have a crazy amount of single Black women here. And Atlanta is known for being the you know, BBL small waist, whatever capital. A majority of my
But I have never been to Atlanta, but what I understand is that there are a lot of rainbow men there, and the women don't want that. So just like we can say that, I'm not going to suggest that the men stop being rainbow, because that's a whole other conversation, whether they choose it or whatever. But the argument could be made, if the men weren't rainbow, they would be more interested in the women. And if they're getting the BBLs and getting the surgeries, maybe that's a turnoff to the straight men. Could it be? Or that they'd be more willing to share men? Or maybe it's their attitudes. Maybe there's just a lot of work that needs to be done. And including in that work is weight.
friends who are single are not overweight. And now this is a personal experience, right? So again, I'm getting qualitative here, but their issues are not, and the men that I know who are single, their issues are not, oh yeah, it's just all these fat girls around and I just can't find a good mate. They have other issues. They're saying that that women's perceptions on finances is an issue, which I don't disagree with. Women's perception on what a man should be doing for them is out of pocket. I agree with that, but it's not that they're fat. And if they were, a lot of the time,
I'm not gonna lie to you. It's qualitative, y'all. But especially if she's fat, I gotta be real. Especially if she's out of shape.
What is out of shape? Can you define that?
Oh, I'm gonna finish the sentence.
What
especially
shape?
when she's out of shape with demand.
What shape?
I'm telling you, it's a different experience when you look better. You're not gonna get the same kind of pushback from men. You're not.
I don't think that that's necessarily wrong. I think that our society is what's the word? I don't want to keep using the word skewed, but our society values skinniness, right? Thinness. That is a overt quality among men and women, no matter your race. I think that American society values thinness, period. But I do want to know from your lens and from what you were getting from the data, what for Black women does it mean to be overweight?
That totally depends on the person. So
we can't look at the medical statistics, medical data, medical chart and determine what that should be? Or is it because Black women have different experiences? Black women have, the big bones and they got this and they got that. Listen, we can go back. I just watched, there was a video that popped up on my feed the other night about, and I watched like 2 minutes of it because I don't like watching AI videos. And it was about, why Black women were thinner in the 1970s. You probably can Google around for it, and they worked out, or not even worked out. They just walked everywhere. The food was obviously better, less polluted, whatever. All these different types of ideas. And we can look back at pictures of our women in the 1940s and the 1950s, sitting on beaches, walking around. So this phenomenon is going on here. Is there more racism today? To the idea that racism is causing all these different problems? Is it racist because the people in the 1940s, 1950s weren't dealing with it? And I get that there's been a huge change in food, which is why I advocate for a whole food plant-based diet that's not filled with chemicals and pesticides, et cetera. That's why I advocate for also leaving the country. That's what I'm going to do. So that definitely is a factor. The racism. What are we talking about here? And if we just get up and move, we walk to different places, we get up early, go to the gym, change what we're doing on our lunch breaks, et cetera, et cetera. There's ways to get around this. I can't continue to play much more of this. I'm only 45 minutes into a 2-hour video here.
We're talking about height, especially height. That totally depends on the person. So we're talking about height, especially height. Height is big. So there's not one.
The BMI, is it percent? Like what?
BMI does give a good general snapshot, but a lot of people don't like that. So especially because there are limitations to it. Because like for example, Black bodies tend to have higher muscle mass. That doesn't mean that every Black body has higher muscle mass, but does mean that it happens more often than with other bodies. So for example, like that can throw off the read of the BMI. So body fat. Like how much body fat you should have on you. If someone has, for example, like 30% body fat, whoever they are, they're too fat. So it depends on depends on the person, because the body fat percentage. So it's
if she really hasn't looked into this, why is she commenting on this? This is something, again, talk about this. Remember, this whole conversation sparked from Dr. Tressy's comments about you're unqualified to have this conversation. So here's a woman who's qualified. She's a personal trainer. Not only she's a licensed therapist, but she's a personal trainer. And she's asking this question about she being mistrust. Vernique, or I believe that's her name. I don't want to. I can't see it here, and I forgot. But her Vernique. She's given the idea of, you know, what does it mean to be overweight? You don't know if she's genuinely asking the question. Why would you comment on this if you don't really know the answer to the question?
It's like, you got to know how much total mass you have, and then we got to do some division in order to get that. So there's not one number of, like, for overweight.
Yeah, I wasn't asking for pound. I was asking for what you said, the qualities, right? What would somebody be considered overweight? I think my concern with that is my whole life, numerically and statistically, I would probably fall in that category, but I'm not fat. I'm not. And my weight has never been a barrier to a relationship. And most people that I know, because in Black culture, thicker bodies, and somebody said people are calling themselves thick, but they're clearly fat. I'm not even talking about that. I'm not going to stand up and show it to you, but I am like thick, right? But I'm also, I'm only like 5'5". But if
I'd like to see that. Could you?
Because of my body shape, the way weight, I'm not doing that. The way weight shows up on my frame is different than somebody who might be my same height and weight, right? Which is essentially what you were saying. It matters and all of that. Numerically, though, according to BMI, whatever, I'm always going to be considered overweight because I have thicker thighs, but I'm absolutely not.
Well, I mean, everybody should just check their body fat percentage. That's a good one.
Right. And I don't know how to check all of that, but well, I do, but you know, the barriers to even getting that, you got to go to a gym that has all the stuff. But my point is,
really easy. It's really, you get, I mean, scales now, you can get body scans with a scale just in your house. It's a lot easier than.
But
I was about to say the same thing. You can buy a scale. I think even some watches do it, right?
My point is, I think that Black men don't like what would be conventionally thin. On average, let me not talk about a specific Black man watching this, but on average, Black culture celebrates slightly thicker bodies, not fat, but slightly thicker. But what might be on paper fat, if we're talking about the data.
Somebody said this before. This is word salad. We know what fat looks like. We're not talking about thick. We're not talking about thick, you know, thicker legs, thicker bottoms. Lord knows I love that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about overlapped stomachs, 3 chins. Come on now.
When a Black man walks around in the world, there are technically fat women that they would still be attracted to, either because of how their weight is distributed throughout their body, how they dress themselves, how their face cards look. So for me, that's why I'm questioning how big of an issue is fatness for the average man. Are they just walking around like, God dang it, I can't find a skinny girl at all? Is that what's happening? Is that why this is statistically relevant or qualitatively relevant?
I think let's just ask the chat. I think, because I think the answer is like, well, there are really men who are like, I cannot find, I hear from them every single day. I cannot find women who are fit enough, okay, healthy enough. Too many women are overweight. So y'all can just drop in the comments.
I don't know. Now here's where I would give Vernique a little bit of leeway. I don't think it's only about that. I think that the more successful you are, and I think Taylor mentioned this before, the more successful you are, then the more you want a thinner woman. And so I think that's point number one. The other point is, I think that guys would take a woman with a little bit more thickness, whatever that would mean to them, if they got a pleasant attitude and if they got, didn't have all the other things that go on, because all the other things make it a deal breaker. If she had a great personality, knew how to cook clean, and was traditionally a traditional woman, knew how to cook clean, wore her own hair, and didn't have a bunch of kids out of wedlock, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Or we wouldn't be having this conversation. But it's a lot of men are not only running into all the other things I just mentioned, but then she's also obese, and I got to take this. Versus I can go over here to quote Kevin Samuels, Mei Ling, or to or I don't even know an Indian woman's name, even though they're not marrying Black dudes like that, right? No, neither are really Asians, right? But I can go over here and get Maria or Kelly. I mean, what are we talking about here? This is what we're talking about.
a 100, like literally just 100. If you're a man and that's an issue for you, drop a 0 if that is absolutely not an issue. It is not a problem.
Yeah,
Okay,
and this is me asking to learn because I
Yeah.
genuinely have not heard that.
Get it.
Why are we talking about this? Here this woman is, by woman I mean Taylor, has made a video in which, again, Dr. Tressie went in there and said, you're not qualified to have this conversation. This woman, Vernique, I don't mean that disparaging in a disparaging way. Vernique has come to Dr. Tressie's rescue and said, you know, what are we talking about here? And now she's saying she never heard this. Are you not listening to black men as they talk? Or this has just always been the way that it's been? This has always been the way that it's been. And this is crazy. So we got one guy here who put a 0 in the chat here. He said, fresh carrot juice, fresh carrot juice. Says 0, it doesn't matter to me at all. Now, how are you going to have a name like fresh carrot juice and talk about a weight of a woman doesn't matter?
You get it. So, okay, a 100, if it's difficult to find a woman who has a body fit enough, not too overweight, a
like
0,
it is a barrier. So
it's a barrier. Like it's a barrier to entry for you. Okay, 0 if it's just not a thing.
And while they're doing that, can I just say one thing about that?
Okay.
Because when you're talking about health and wellness too, what I notice is we're talking about the physicality, but on average, we have an issue with black men going to get medical attention and going like, and I'm not trying to sidestep the point, but what I'm saying is the health that we tout as what we claim to be an issue seems to only be aesthetic and not holistic, which is kind of my just a side point of like, that's interesting to me. And I'm seeing the 100s. Y'all just can't find no average sized women.
Why y'all got 90?
Okay.
Why y'all got 90, 78? Oh,
I think they're trying to say kind of.
You guys had 2. See, y'all gotta follow the instructions. Well, we got to continue on here. This is an ongoing discussion. Okay, we've heard a lot. Let me go back to this reel and make sure we don't miss
married compared.
Okay, we got the thing about comparing the men to women. Vernique said everybody's failing, so nobody.
And I do stand by that. We're all failing. We all suck.
Okay. There is definitely something to that. There's, stop tearing everybody, different people down. Everybody needs to get better. Okay. How about that?
Okay. Effectively makes you broke in that regard.
Okay. So that was my argument that men, once women they're attracted to and who would be healthy enough for
or at least
pregnancy,
out of
carrying the child in a healthy way. Too many black women, 8 out of 10 are overweight. And what do you think about that real quick? What do you think about that statistic? 8 out of 10 black women overweight or obese.
Yeah. So on its face, that's problematic. And I am not the fat girl like spokesperson. I feel like I'm not the best person to talk about what that experience is like because that's not been part of my personal experience. But from a statistical sociological lens, that's why I brought up what does overweight mean? Because most Black people that I know probably fall in that category, including me. And a lot of us are not fat. Like I work out on a regular basis. I eat right, all the things. Like I am a healthy weight. I have muscles, all that kind of stuff, right? So for me, I'm like, what does overweight mean? Are we measuring that to white like standards? Like to what white women on average look like and how their bodies feel out and look? Because if so, then that statistic to not you, but the statistic is skewed and doesn't account for
the cultural differences. Yeah, and I think that's why the qualitative stuff matters. Like it matters what people are saying because if the stats are based on BMI and we're like, okay, BMI does not account for these curvy, thick Black women who are not overweight. They're working out, they're still showing up in the overweight or obese categories. Well, then I think it especially matters then that we pay attention to what people are saying, what men are saying. They're saying women are too big for me to take seriously for a relationship. And we can't, and you're gonna throw out the, I don't want to say you want to throw out the data, but we understand that BMI is often looked at with a side eye because of exactly what I just said. So it's like, okay, if we can't look at the BMI and someone doesn't want to, and everybody doesn't want to go buy a scale to get their body fat percentage, and I'm willing to come and clip with the body, we could come and get measurements if we need to, but if someone's not willing to do that, then I think we need to listen to what people are saying. There was something it's all right. There was something I want to make sure that we touch on, because I think it would be wrong of me to skip over this because it came up so much in the chat. And then we're going to move on to the next reel. But something you said, or something I see people kind of had an issue with in the comments was bringing up Black men when it came to why Black women are not married. Like it was, because we heard you say things like Black men aren't showing up to dating as healthy. You also said that about Black women, to be fair. But what do you think? I mean, from your perspective, what is the relevancy for you? Why is it important to bring in the black man? Because I don't think it's necessarily wrong, right? But I think that to be clear for people who are like, why is she talking about black men if we're talking about black women being single? Like, can you help us understand the relevancy?
That's so interesting, because my understanding is that black men are saying their rates are what they are because they can't find non-fat black women, and so they're pivoting to other rates.
That's not all of it.
Yeah.
It's also, especially like the attitude is huge. The attitude is like
right, and even with that is you saying, well, that is black men saying they're not married because black women's attitude and they're fat, and I'm saying, well, black women are saying their experiences with men and their emotional immaturity is a big piece as to why. I think we're doing the same thing. So it's not about me mentioning black women. You're telling me about black men's experiences and how they experience black women. And I'm telling you how black women experience black men. Now, if we want to get to let's line them up and like accountability on both sides, I can tell you as a professional what I think black women need to do better, and we can talk about what black men need to do better. But if we're talking about, well, they're saying if we're doing,
I'd like to hear what you think that black women need to do better. I'd like to hear that. I genuinely would like to hear that. I'm going to actually reach out to her.
Finger pointing, I'm telling you what the data, what the experience is on the other side. That's not me pointing out black men. I'm doing what y'all are saying your issues are.
Okay. Let's talk about this one.
Attitude that black women in general have about being the most single and the most overweight is this, and quite frankly, crass attitude that black women in general have about being the most single and the most overweight is, in my opinion, more alarming than the stats themselves. Who gives a F? You should give an F. And I'm going to give you one reason why, among many, which I will be reporting on shortly. One big reason has to do with money and the life that will go on as you age. Black women, single, college educated at age 60 and older, carry a median wealth of $11,000. In contrast to black married women, $424,000. White unmarried women, $384,000. That's how the stats are laid out, y'all. So what does this mean? Simply put, it means you will age poor. You are not going to have any money. So the life that will go on is going to be rougher than you think, and more people are going to be crying.
Probably because they're buying Birkins and traveling and doing all this wig stuff and all this BB getting all this different stuff. And, you know, some of them probably have student loan debt, et cetera, et cetera. That's probably it.
Then you'll admit this.
What do you think about that? Median wealth, $11,000, age, black women, single, age 60 and older, college educated, compared to, I think it was $424,000 for married black women, $384,000 for single white women. What do you make of that?
I think that it's sad. I don't have any pushback on that. Like, I don't think I am on the side of marriage is a pathway for black folks to build wealth. Now, from a sociological standpoint, but well, let me not get sidetracked by the comments. Hold on, let me turn them off. Okay. From a sociological perspective, there is something, and it may be an outdated theory, but it used to be called the feminization of poverty, meaning that women, not just black women, but women, this is an old study. It's from like.
Why are you quoting old studies, theories that have been debunked and are no longer? I had a student do that the other day. He brought something up from like 1990. It wasn't even from the 90s, was it? It was like 1980 something. Gave me a paper from 1986. I'm like, what is this? You give me a 40-year-old study? What are you doing?
There is something, and it may be an outdated theory, but it used to be called the feminization of poverty, meaning that women, not just black women, but women, this is an old study. It's from like the 80s or 90s or something like that. But the theory was a feminization of poverty, meaning that as a single individual, women are more likely to be impoverished if they do not marry, even in less than ideal circumstances. Now, with modern shifts and changes, which I know a lot of men are upset about, I've seen a couple comments on past posts of yours and even of mine about how, well, you know, women were able to get access to all these things, and essentially now it was F men. And we can talk about that. And I think that there is, again, more sociological content and context to add to that. But I do get it. I think that women have entered a space where we have access to wealth in a way that our prior generations did not, due to certain policies and opportunities and all these different things. And in some ways have, I don't know, I think in some experiences, and I'm gonna actually lean on, because I'm what's it called, humble enough to do this. When I've talked to my male friends, they're saying that the attitudes that Black women that have access to more money, maybe some wealth, has like shifted how they engage in the dating market. Fair. I will not take that away from anyone. But I do think that while those statistics suck, they are changing, and I think they're ever evolving, and Black women are having more access to wealth on their own. Now, having wealth and maintaining wealth are two different things, but the average Black male household is not that much better. So this is why I keep going, and it's going to seem like sidestep, and I'll get back to the point, but I don't think that Black men are doing so much better in the market right now. Now, that may change with some of the things that are happening administratively and politically, but to get back to the main point, I think that sucks. But
so a man, because the stats, I'm going to look this up. Stats over 60. Stats over 60 of how women are doing, if they have $11,000. How are Black men doing the same? Black men over 60. Well, what we died 63 or something like that. It might be a little bit older now. Black men in there who are over 60. What is their net worth? Write that down. Make sure I an hour and a half doing this here.
With historical and sociological data, Black women's wealth and portfolios and things like that are improving. But marriage, I think, would help us to generate more wealth and to do better long term, as long as policies and socio-political and socioeconomic environments improve, right? Because we're also susceptible to those things as opposed to white households. Because on the face of it, and I'm gonna land my plane because I know I'm talking a lot. On the face of it, we're doing poorly, but it's not just because we're not married. It is also because of systemic barriers and all kinds of things. Especially right now, we can talk about the federal government firing hundreds of thousands of people and all these different things. It will always hit Black women and the Black community harder than white folks.
It's because of the type of jobs, right? AI is replacing those jobs. And listen, I'm not in agreement with that. You know, if AI or robots started taking over construction jobs and policing jobs and in the jobs where men were more involved, then that would be an issue. This whole modernization thing has always been an issue, and in particular, Black people have always been hit first. And the Black women were hired for DEI jobs, and now they're eliminating those jobs. Well, you know, this is why partnering up could be a benefit.
Because of how the system shows up. So we can't sidestep the impact of the system, like the white-centered system at work in America.
Okay, so that's definitely going to sound like we're blaming white supremacy. And I understand, like, we got to acknowledge the barriers, okay? But I think also, you know, we know that money, it's more likely, like you said, to build wealth through marriage. Like, that's still like it's like the most tried and true kind of way system. So I think that's really important, right? Even though we can say, okay, well, people can make money in different kinds of ways. Well, yes, but when you say that, do you think that negates marriage at all? Like, do you think that undervalues or undermines marriage at all? Like when you say that?
No, I don't. That women are having more access to things when I say that?
Yeah, when it's like, well, you know, women are making more money than ever, and the numbers aren't going to be this way, you know, for kind of for long, because women are going to be making more money. They're already making more money, and so it kind of sounds like an undermining of marriage.
No, I don't think so. Because, and I'm actually really glad we're here. I think that the double speak that happens between why aren't these women submissive? Why don't they just want, racism is a thing, y'all. But anyways, I was talking about the comment. Why? We want women who are supportive, that don't just see us as, you know, pocket providers, like all this stuff. But then when we talk about women building wealth and not wanting you just for, like, marriage has to be more than providership, then it's, see, like, y'all are making more money and now you're trying to da-da-da-da. While I can acknowledge the attitudes potentially that come from that, I don't think that me saying that Black women accumulating wealth means that that's an undermining of marriage. I am a perpetuator of like, I want people to get married. I want Black people to get married. That is my whole platform. But I think people should start, in light of the current and modern circumstances, I think people should consider why they should get married outside of wealth collection. I think that we need to consider that, yes, building wealth is important generationally and foundationally, and we should do that, have those conversations. But I also think that a marriage is more than how much money both of you make, because people are still getting divorced and they have higher net worths or whatever the case may be. I know people who have gotten divorced and they're splitting mad assets. The money didn't keep them.
Okay. But money is
I don't think it undermines marriage.
Money's like a really big deal. Like, as a social worker, what kind of things have you seen impact people as they age and they don't have enough resources? What kind of things do they have to rely on, like, from the state?
I don't think that that's like, I'm not saying that marriage and building wealth and money is not important. What I'm saying is marriage has to be built off of more than that. We can't just say, we got to build generational wealth, let's get married. I'm saying that we need to, like, while resources and things are, like, women have more access to those things now, their main reason for getting married is not going to be simply to build wealth, even though it is an avenue to pull resources together. It has to be more than that for Black women today to want to be married and engaged in relationships and things like that. Money is important. We all need money. We live in a capitalistic society. I have money. I have assets. I think that those things are important. And I want somebody that is going to allow us to continue to do that, right? I want to be with somebody that we can build wealth together. But I also want to be with somebody who has character at the end of the day and has, like, the emotional stability and the values that I'm also looking for. So we can't just hinge on, we got to get married to build wealth. That's what I'm trying to say.
All right, I'm going to leave it off there because I've been on for an hour and almost 40 minutes now. So they're moving on to money. This is actually a really, really good conversation. I'm definitely going to reach out to Miss Vernique, and I hope that she would come on the show to continue this conversation, because I think it's important. This was really, really good and deserves the breakdown. So let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Hit me in the comments section. I'm definitely going to do a part 2 to this, but let me know what you think thus far. And yeah, I should have did this live to get you guys reaction, but this would take forever to do. So, all right. So, but we got the live replay in the chat here, and I'll keep this up, and I'll talk to you guys again. Much love and peace.